My thumb froze over the glowing screen. There they were, my parents, my sister, beaming from the porch of my cabin, the one I built for them in secret. The caption read, "Making new family memories in our mountain retreat." At 34, my name is Alara Vance, and I was the ghost who paid for their lives. In that one photo, I realized they hadn't just forgotten me, they had erased me. This wasn't a family retreat, it was the scene of a crime. Before I share my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit like and subscribe if you've ever gone above and beyond for family. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happened next. It felt surreal, standing in the polished quiet of my Denver office, a space I'd designed to mirror my life. Sleek, controlled, meticulously ordered. The contract lay on my desk, signed, a multi-million-dollar testament to sustainable design. Another milestone checked, another success hollowly echoing through my chest. My gaze wandered to a framed sketch beside my computer. The Serenity. The name I'd whispered since childhood, a promise made on cold mountain nights beside my mother Susan. She'd wrap me in threadbare blankets, her eyes distant, voice barely audible. Someday I just want a place where the mountains hold us, where worry can't find us. That promise became my life's blueprint. The Serenity was born from those whispered dreams, every stone, timber, and pane of glass personally chosen, lovingly placed. It was my masterpiece, silently built for my parents, a testament to gratitude I never quite knew how to voice. Yet, for all my professional triumphs, solitude shadowed me relentlessly. The echoing rooms of my personal life contrasted sharply with the vibrant world my sister Chloe inhabited, her laughter always ringing brighter, effortlessly loved. My phone vibrated. A quick glance tightened my jaw. Another thank you from Chloe for a cash gift she'd squandered on some extravagant ski trip. She never knew the truth that I'd quietly paid off our parents' failing craft store in Aspen. She was adored, visible. I was the ghost that kept them all afloat. The Serenity awaited its unveiling, a surprise retirement gift. But today, standing amidst my sterile success, loneliness felt heavier than ever. Sunday mornings were sacred, dedicated to quiet work and solitude, but an unexpected buzz disturbed my peace. Chloe's Instagram notification flashed brightly, making new family memories in our mountain retreat. My heart stumbled as I scrolled through images, each like a dagger turning deeper. My cabin, my secret gift, alive with laughter and music. My parents' smiles brightened every frame, Chloe's radiant joy at the center, while I was glaringly absent. Then one photo froze me completely. My father, Robert, stood toasting with Chloe and a sharply dressed stranger holding a leather portfolio. Chloe's caption, innocent to everyone else, felt sinister to me. Securing the future. #legacy family first. Securing. It grated painfully. A sense of wrongness clawed at my throat. The mountains in the background, meant to symbolize comfort, now loomed threateningly. I felt a quiet tremor ripple through my composure. Something inside fractured, as betrayal seeped into every nerve, isolating me further. Without thinking, I grabbed my keys, leaving the sterile calm of Denver behind. The drive to Aspen blurred, anger and dread twisting inside me. Arriving at the cabin, remnants of the party lingered painfully, discarded champagne bottles, forgotten streamers flapping gently in the mountain breeze. My family's faces fell when I walked in, eyes darting nervously. "Alara," my father began coolly, avoiding my gaze. "We didn't expect you." "Clearly," I replied, voice sharper than intended. "Care to explain why you celebrated in a home that belongs to me, without me?" My mother's silence was deafening, her gaze fixed stubbornly on the floor. Chloe shifted uncomfortably, but my father stood firm, a disturbing calmness settling over his features as he drew a paper from that familiar leather portfolio. "You gifted it to the family trust," he said evenly, sliding a quitclaim deed toward me. My signature sprawled confidently on the page, a perfect lie. "2 years ago, remember? For tax reasons." The air vanished from my lungs. "I never signed this." "Alara," my father sighed patronizingly, "we talked about this. You were overwhelmed at work, stressed, distant. You probably just forgot." Gaslighting threaded through his tone, smooth and practiced. My mother still wouldn't meet my eyes while Chloe watched, brows knitted in confusion and false concern. "You know I would never." "Wouldn't you?" he cut sharply, disappointment heavy in his voice. "You've always been detached. We thought this was your way of reconnecting." Each word was a calculated strike, painting me as cold, forgetful, unloving. They'd rewritten my narrative, stealing even my truth. "Please leave, Alara," he finished coldly, turning away, my mother and Chloe silent accomplices. Stumbling out, betrayal burned hot tears down my cheeks, reality crumbling beneath me. The mountains loomed around the Serenity, silent witnesses to my devastation. I drove away from the scene of my shattered dreams, profoundly alone, unsure if the wound inflicted today would ever heal. I sat at my desk, the Denver skyline glinting through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my architectural office. The contract in front of me was a beast, $12 million for a sustainable urban complex. My pen hovered, then signed, Alara Vance, clean, precise, like everything I did. The client, a wiry man in a tailored suit, grinned and shook my hand. "You're a machine, Alara, nobody does it like you." I smiled, tight-lipped, and saw him out. The door clicked shut, and the silence hit me like a fist. I was good at this, building things, making them perfect. My office was a testament to it. Minimalist, all glass and steel, not a paper out of place. But inside I was a hollowed-out shell, the kind of empty that gnaws at you when nobody's watching. I glanced at the framed photo on my desk, me, Mom, Dad, and Chloe at a Christmas market in Aspen, years ago. Mom's smile was tired, Dad's arm slung around Chloe like she was the sun. I was off to the side, clutching a sketch pad. Always a little apart. My phone buzzed, pulling me back. A text from Chloe, my younger sister. All emojis and exclamation points. "Thanks for the cash, big sis. Ski trip was amazing." I stared at it, my thumb hovering over the screen. I hadn't sent her money for a ski trip. I'd wired $10,000 to Mom and Dad's failing craft store in Aspen, like I did every few months. Quietly, always quietly. Chloe must have gotten the money redirected, spun it into her latest adventure. She was the golden child, the one who lit up rooms. I was the one who paid the bills. I leaned back, my chair creaking, and let my mind drift to a memory that never left me. I was 10, sitting on a sagging porch in the mountains with Mom. Our rental was a dump. Peeling paint, a roof that leaked when it stormed. Mom's hands trembled as she lit a cigarette, her eyes scanning the horizon like she could will something better into existence. "Someday, Alara," she whispered, "I just want a place where the mountains hold us and we don't have to worry." I didn't say anything, just tucked her words into my chest. They became my North Star. That's why I built the Serenity. Not just a cabin, but a masterpiece, my masterpiece. Tucked into the Rockies, it was all clean lines and glass, solar panels glinting like promises. Every detail was mine, from the reclaimed wood floors to the skylight that framed the stars. I designed it for Mom and Dad as a retirement gift to make her dream real. I hadn't told them yet. It was my secret, my way of saying I love you without ever having to say it out loud. But love, I was learning, didn't always come back the way you sent it. The first crack came that Sunday morning. I was knee-deep in blueprints when my phone pinged, an Instagram notification. Chloe had tagged Mom in a post. I tapped it, expecting another of her curated, bubbly updates. The album loaded. Making new family memories in our mountain retreat. My stomach twisted. The photos weren't from some random Airbnb. They were from the Serenity. My cabin. My soul poured into wood and glass. I scrolled, my breath catching. Mom and Dad were there, beaming, clinking glasses. Chloe played hostess, her laugh practically leaping off the screen. Cousins I hadn't seen in years, family friends I barely knew. They were all there, sprawled across my porch, eating catered food in my great room. A party. A huge one. And I hadn't been invited. One photo stopped me cold. Dad stood with Chloe and a man I didn't recognize, sharp suit, leather portfolio in hand. They were toasting, the mountains framing them like a painting. Chloe's caption read, "Securing the future. So grateful for family who knows how to make things happen. Legacy family first." The word securing landed like a blade. My hands shook as I zoomed in on the portfolio. Something about it felt wrong, like a shadow where there should have been light. The 3-hour drive to Aspen was a blur of rage and dread. The Rockies loomed, their peaks sharp against the sky, but they didn't feel like home. Not today. My knuckles whitened on the steering wheel as I replayed that Instagram post. Chloe's smile, Dad's toast. That word, securing. By the time I pulled up to the Serenity, the sun was dipping low, painting the cabin's glass walls in fire. The party was over, but cars still lined the drive. Mom's old Subaru, Dad's pickup, Chloe's shiny new SUV. I stepped out, my boots crunching on gravel. The air smelled of pine and betrayal. Inside, I found them in the great room, Mom fussing with dishes, Dad nursing a beer, Chloe scrolling her phone. They looked up, and for a split second I saw it. Tension, not warmth, like I'd walked in on a secret. "Alara," Mom said, her voice too high. "What are you doing here? What am I doing here?" I gestured at the room, the remnants of the party, empty wine glasses, a half-eaten charcuterie board. What the hell was this? A party at my cabin, and I'm not invited. Chloe set her phone down, her smile practiced. "It was last minute, Elle. We didn't think you'd care. You're always so busy." "Busy?" My voice cracked. "This is my house, Chloe. Mine. I built it. I paid for it. And you're throwing parties here like it's yours?" Dad cleared his throat, standing. "Alara, calm down. It was a family decision. We needed a place to gather, and—" "A family decision?" I cut him off, my pulse hammering. "Without me? What's going on? And who was that guy in the photo, the one with the portfolio?" Silence. Mom looked at her hands. Chloe's smile faltered. Dad sighed, reaching for a folder on the coffee table, the same leather portfolio from the Instagram post. He opened it and slid a document toward me. "Here, maybe this will clear things up." I took it, my fingers numb. It was a quitclaim deed dated 2 years ago. The words swam: Alara Vance, grantor, Vance Family Trust, grantee, the Serenity. My signature was at the bottom, neat and familiar, except I'd never signed it. "Not this. Not ever." "What is this?" I whispered, looking up. "I didn't sign this." Dad's eyes met mine, steady, almost pitying. "Alara, we talked about this. You were stressed, remember? That rough quarter with the downtown project? You said you wanted the property off your books for tax purposes. You really don't recall?" I staggered back, the room tilting. No, I didn't. I would never." My voice broke. "This is a forgery." "Alara, please," Mom said, her voice soft like she was soothing a child. "You're always so wrapped up in work. Maybe you just forgot." Chloe chimed in, her tone gentle but sharp. "You've been so distant, Elle. We thought you were okay with it. Dad said you were." I looked from one to the other, their faces a united front. My family. The people I'd spent my life protecting, with propping up with every dollar I earned. They were lying to me, gaslighting me, framing me as the cold, forgetful one, the outsider. "I need air," I managed, stumbling toward the door. Outside, the mountains stood silent, their embrace suddenly suffocating. I drove back to Denver in a haze, the forged deed burning a hole in my passenger seat. By the time I got home, I was shaking. Not with anger, but with something deeper. Doubt. Had I signed it? Was I losing it? I locked the door, sank to the floor, and cried for the first time in years. The next morning I called my cousin Lily, who'd been at the party. Her voice was warm but cautious. "Your dad explained everything, Alara. We thought it was so generous of you to give the cabin to the family trust. Honestly, it was beautiful." I hung up, my throat tight. They'd rewritten my story and everyone believed it. Days bled into nights and I barely left my apartment. The Denver skyline mocked me from my window, a reminder of everything I'd built, everything I thought I controlled. But control was an illusion. My family had taken the serenity, my heart's work, and turned it into a lie. Worse, they'd made me question myself. I pored over the forged deed, tracing the signature with my finger. It was mine, but not mine. The V in Vance was too sharp, the loop too tight. A fake so close it could fool anyone, even me, for a moment. I stopped answering calls. Chloe texted once, a breezy costis. "Hope you're okay, sis. Let's grab coffee soon." I deleted it. Mom left a voicemail, her voice quivering. "Alara, we didn't mean to upset you. Please, let's talk." I didn't call back. Dad didn't reach out at all. The silence from him hurt the most. I was spiraling, and I knew it. The woman who'd closed million-dollar deals without blinking was gone, replaced by someone who couldn't trust her own memory. I barely ate, barely slept. My office sat empty, my clients left to my assistant's vague excuses. But in the quiet, something flickered, a spark of clarity. I pulled out old files from the Serenity's construction, spreading them across my dining table like a war map. Blueprints, permits, invoices. And there, in a folder of county records, I found it. My signature on a building permit, dated 3 years ago. I held it next to a photo of the forged deed on my phone. The V in Vance was different. Subtle, but undeniable. Proof. It wasn't enough to fix the ache in my chest, but it was enough to make me angry again. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was a crime. They'd stolen from me and I wasn't going to let them rewrite my life. I needed help, someone who'd believe me when my own family wouldn't. That's when I found Marcus Thorne. His office was the opposite of mine. Cluttered, lived in, with stacks of files and a coffee mug that said, "Trust me, I'm a lawyer." He was in his 50s, broad-shouldered with a handshake that could crush bones. I laid it all out, the cabin, the party, the deed, the signatures. He listened, his eyes narrowing as I slid the documents across his desk. "This is a hell of a story, Miss Vance," he said, leaning back. "But forgeries are tricky. You're saying your own family did this?" "I know how it sounds," I said, my voice steady for the first time in days. "But look at the signatures. I didn't sign that deed, they're lying." He studied the documents, his fingers tapping the desk. "If you're right, this is fraud, maybe worse, but taking on your family? It's gonna get ugly. You ready for that?" I thought of Mom's trembling hands, Dad's cold stare, Chloe's careless smile. I thought of the serenity, my love made stone and glass, now a stage for their lies. "I'm ready," I said. Marcus nodded, a glint in his eye. "All right, let's start digging." That night, I slept for the first time in a week. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was something close. A shield, however small, against the betrayal that had broken me. I wasn't alone anymore. Not entirely. The days after hiring Marcus felt like wading through fog. I'd found a lifeline in him, but the weight of my family's betrayal clung to me, heavy and cold. I went through the motions, showering, dressing, answering emails, but I was a ghost in my own life. My office, once my sanctuary, felt like a cage. I'd catch myself staring at the framed photo of Mom, Dad, Chloe, and me, wondering when we'd stopped being a family and started being strangers. Marcus moved fast. He connected me with Ben, a private investigator who looked like he'd stepped out of a noir film, graying hair, leather jacket, eyes that saw too much. We met in a diner outside Denver, the kind with sticky tables and coffee that burned your throat. I slid him the forged deed and the building permit. He studied them, then looked at me, not with pity but with something like respect. "This is personal for you," he said, voice low. "But we're gonna treat it like business. You good with that?" I nodded, my hands wrapped around a chipped mug. "Just find out who did this, and why." Ben dug in, and I tried to keep myself together, but the world kept cracking. One night, I got a call from my assistant, Jen. "Alara, there's been complaints. Clients are saying you're not returning calls. The Parker project is stalled." I mumbled an excuse, but the truth was I couldn't focus. My mind was in Aspen, in that cabin, replaying Dad's voice. "You really don't recall?" Then came the first real blow. Ben called me to his office, a cramped space above a laundromat. He spread out financial records on his desk, Mom and Dad's craft store. "It's not just struggling," he said, tapping a column of numbers. "They're drowning. High-interest loans, private lenders, nasty ones. They've been bleeding cash for years." I stared at the figures, my stomach churning. "I've been sending them money, thousands every few months. It wasn't enough?" Ben's jaw tightened. "It's not about enough. It's about where the money's going." He slid another document toward me. Bank transfers, big ones, from the store's account to Chloe's. A new SUV, a trip to Bali, a down payment on a condo in Vale. My sister living like a queen while I patched the holes in our parents' dreams. I drove home in a daze, the Denver lights blurring through my windshield. Chloe, my bubbly, careless sister. I'd always thought her selfishness was harmless. A quirk I could forgive because I loved her. But this was theft, dressed up in her perfect smile. And Mom and Dad had let it happen, maybe even encouraged it. The next morning I woke to a knock at my office door. A man stood there, tall, broad, with a scar above his eyebrow. He didn't introduce himself, just leaned against the doorframe, his voice smooth as oil. "Nice place you got here, Miss Vance. Be a shame if something happened to that cabin of yours in Aspen. Family matters should stay private, don't you think?" My heart pounded, but I kept my face blank. "Get out." He smirked, tipped an imaginary hat, and left. I locked the door, my hands shaking. They weren't just lying, they were scared, and now so was I. The threat lingered like smoke, but it didn't break me. If anything, it sharpened my edges. I wasn't just fighting for the serenity anymore, I was fighting for the truth. Marcus and Ben became my anchors, the only people I trusted. We met weekly, piecing together the puzzle. Ben's digging turned up more. The notary from the Instagram photo, a guy named Carl Harris, had a rap sheet, petty fraud mostly, but he'd come into serious cash right around the date on the forged deed. A payoff. Carl's our weak link, Ben said, tossing a photo of the guy onto Marcus's desk. He's got debts, habits. We lean on him, he'll crack. Marcus nodded, scribbling notes. We need more than a hunch, though. Alara, you got anything else? Old emails, texts, anything tying your family to this? I shook my head, frustrated. I've gone through everything. They were careful. Then we keep digging, Marcus said. And you stay sharp. That guy at your office? He's not playing. I didn't tell them how I'd started checking my locks twice, how I'd stopped parking in my usual spot. Fear was a new companion, but I wasn't going to let it win. I threw myself into the case, spending nights combing through old photos, bank statements, anything I could get my hands on. One evening, I found a text from Chloe, sent a year ago. Sis, you're the best! Thanks for always having our backs. I'd thought she meant emotionally. Now, I saw it for what it was, a thank you for the money I didn't know I was giving. Ben's next report was a gut punch. The private loans Mom and Dad had taken weren't just bad business. They were from a lender known for breaking kneecaps when payments were late. The timeline was damning. The forged deed was signed days before a massive balloon payment was due. They'd used the serenity to buy time, to keep the wolves at bay. And Chloe? She'd been the beneficiary. Her lifestyle bankrolled by my sacrifice. I sat with that truth, letting it burn. My parents hadn't just betrayed me, they'd chosen Chloe over me, propping up her golden girl image while I was left to carry the weight. I thought of Mom's trembling hands, Dad's cold stare, Chloe's careless laugh. They'd built a system where I was the silent donor, the one who could be taken from. But I wasn't silent anymore. Marcus filed a motion to challenge the deed, citing fraud. It was a long shot, he warned, but it was a start. Ben kept tailing Carl, waiting for a slip. And me? I started sketching again. Small things, door frames, windows, nothing grand. It was a way to remember who I was before all this. An architect, a builder, someone who made things real. One night Marcus called. Ben got something. Carl's been talking, nervous. Says he notarized the deed for your dad. No questions asked. Cash changed hands. We're close, Alara. I hung up, my heart racing. Close but not there. The fear was still there, the hurt still raw. But for the first time, I felt something else. Hope. Small, fragile, but real. The breakthrough came on a gray Tuesday. Ben called me to his office, his voice tight with excitement. We've got it, he said, sliding a folder across his desk. Bank records, wire transfers, emails. The money trail was clear. Dad had paid Carl $5,000 to notarize the forged deed. But it didn't stop there. Large sums from the store's account, my money, funneled through loans, had gone straight to Chloe, not just for her SUV or her condo, but for a life I'd never been invited to share. Designer clothes, a trip to Paris, a charity gala where she'd been photographed, glowing, while I was wiring cash to keep the store afloat. I sat back, the folder heavy in my hands. They used me, I said, my voice barely a whisper. All of them. Ben nodded, his eyes soft but unflinching. Your parents needed a way out of debt. Chloe needed her lifestyle. You were the collateral. Collateral. The word cut deeper than I expected. I'd spent my life being the responsible one, the one who fixed things. But to them, I was a resource, a means to an end. Mom's dream of a worry-free life, Dad's pride and Chloe's shine, it all rested on my shoulders and they'd carved me up to keep it going. Marcus moved quickly. With Ben's evidence, he built a case. Fraud, forgery, conspiracy. He warned me it would be brutal. Your family's going to fight dirty, he said. They'll drag your name through the mud. You sure you want to go public? I thought of the serenity, its glass walls reflecting the mountains. I thought of Mom's whisper on that porch all those years ago. I thought of the silence where my name should have been. I'm sure, I said. The first hearing was set for a month out. In the meantime, I kept my head down, avoiding Aspen, avoiding my family. Chloe texted once, a single line, "Why are you doing this to us?" I didn't reply. Mom called, her voicemail a tearful plea, "Alara, we're family, don't tear us apart." I saved it, not out of sentiment but as evidence. Dad stayed silent, his absence louder than ever. One night, I sat in my apartment sketching. Not buildings but moments. Me at 10, Mom's cigarette smoke curling into the sky. Me at 30, signing checks I thought were saving them. The sketches were messy, raw, but they were mine. They reminded me I was more than their collateral. I was Alara Vance, and I was done being invisible. I didn't call them. I didn't warn them. Instead, I sent an email, cold and professional, addressed to Mom, Dad, and Chloe. Meeting at the Serenity, Saturday, 2 p.m. Urgent trust matter. Attorney Marcus Thorne will attend. I CC'd Marcus and hit send, my heart pounding. This wasn't about reconciliation. This was about reclaiming what was mine, not just the cabin but my truth. The drive to Aspen felt different this time. The Rockies, once suffocating, stood tall like witnesses to what was coming. I arrived early, parking my car at the edge of the property. The Serenity gleamed in the afternoon light, its glass walls reflecting the mountains. I walked inside, my boots echoing on the wood floors I'd chosen with such care. The great room was empty, but it wouldn't be for long. I set up a projector, one I'd used for client presentations, and loaded the evidence: Ben's financial reports, the side-by-side signatures, the timeline of loans and payments. This wasn't a family meeting. It was a trial. They arrived together, Mom, Dad, Chloe pulling up in Dad's pickup. I watched from the window as they stepped out, their faces tight. Chloe's hair was perfect, her coat designer. Mom clutched her purse like a shield. Dad's jaw was set, his eyes scanning the cabin like it was his. They didn't knock, just walked in, and for a moment I saw us as we'd been. A family, flawed but whole. Then I remembered the forged deed, and the moment passed. "Alora, what is this?" Dad said, his voice gruff. "Dragging a lawyer up here? This is family business." "Sit down," I said, my voice steady. Marcus stood by the projector, his presence a quiet anchor. They hesitated, then sat. Mom and Dad on the couch, Chloe perched on an armchair, her phone still in her hand. I didn't preamble. I clicked the projector on, and the first slide appeared, my signature on the building permit, next to the forged deed. "This," I said, pointing, "is what you did. You forged my signature, stole my property, and lied to my face." Mom gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Chloe's eyes widened, but she said nothing. Dad leaned forward, his face reddening. "Alora, we've been over this. You agreed." "No," I cut him off, clicking to the next slide, Ben's bank records. "You paid Carl Harris $5,000 to notarize a lie. You used my money, funneled through your failing store, to keep Chloe in condos and trips to Paris. You sold me out to save yourselves." The room went silent, the kind of silence that presses against your eardrums. Chloe's phone slipped from her hand, clattering to the floor. Mom's shoulders shook, tears streaming down her face. Dad's defiance cracked, his hands clenching into fists. "Alora," Chloe said, her voice small, "you have so much. The firm, the contracts. Why can't you just share? Why does it have to be like this?" I stared at her, my sister, the one I'd loved enough to bleed for. "Because you took everything," I said. "This cabin wasn't just a house. It was my heart, Chloe, and you threw a party on it." Dad stood, his voice rising. "You were never one of us, Alora. Always with your head in the clouds, building things. We built a family. What did you ever build besides walls?" The words hit like a slap, but I didn't flinch. I stepped forward, my voice low and clear. "I built this." I gestured to the room, the glass, the mountains beyond. "And you will leave it." Mom sobbed, a broken sound. "Alora, please, we're sorry, we didn't mean." "You did," I said, cutting her off. "You meant every choice, every lie, and now you'll face the consequences." Marcus stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "We filed to nullify the deed. Fraud charges are pending. You can fight it, but the evidence is airtight. I suggest you get a lawyer." Dad's face crumpled, not with shame but with anger. Chloe cried, but her tears were for herself, not me. Mom reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "We're done here," I said. "Get out." They left, their footsteps heavy on the porch. I stood in the great room, the projector still humming, and felt the weight of what I'd done. I'd torn us apart, but I'd also set myself free. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal filings and silence. Marcus pushed the case forward and the forged deed was nullified. The Serenity was mine again, legally and fully. Fraud charges hung over Mom, Dad, and Chloe, but I didn't follow the details. I didn't need to. The store closed, its debts swallowing what was left of their lives. Chloe's Instagram went quiet, her golden girl glow dimmed. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt hollow, like I'd won a war but lost the world. I stayed in Denver, rebuilding my life piece by piece. Clients came back, drawn by whispers of my family drama, but staying from my work. I threw myself into designs, sketching buildings that felt like hope, community centers, libraries, places where people could belong. But at night, I'd drive to the Serenity, alone. The cabin was still beautiful, its glass walls holding the mountains like a promise. But it was haunted. not by ghosts but by memories. One evening Marcus came by, not as my lawyer but as my friend. We sat on the porch, sipping wine, the wind chimes tinkling above us. I'd bought them for Mom years ago, a small gift she'd loved. I hadn't taken them down. "You keeping the place?" Marcus asked, his voice soft. I looked out at the peaks, their edges softened by dusk. "I thought about selling it," I said. "Too many ghosts." But then I realized, it's not about them, it's about me, what I built, what I can still build. He nodded, clinking his glass against mine. "You're tougher than you look, Vance." I smiled, a real one for the first time in months. I had to be. That night, I opened a new sketchbook. The pages were blank, full of possibility. I didn't draw a mansion or a monument. I sketched a community center. Small but warm, with windows that let the mountains in. A place where people could gather, where no one would feel like the outsider. It wasn't for Mom or Dad or Chloe, it was for me, and for anyone who'd ever felt erased. I thought about Mom's words, all those years ago, a place where the mountains hold us. I'd built that place thinking it would save them, but they hadn't needed saving. I had. And now I was. Not with forgiveness or closure, but with something better. Myself. The final lesson wasn't about what they'd done or even what they'd said. It was about the silence where my name should have been and the strength I found to write it in. I was Alara Vance, architect of my own life, and I was just getting started.